New game, who this?
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Alistair, the new Grey Warden. Though I guess you knew that.
Ex-Templar turned Grey Warden. He's the very first core companion you meet in Dragon Age Origins, and you can't get rid of him until the very end of the game. Why? Because he also happens to be the most important character in the game. In fact, your avatar wasn't around, he'd be the main protagonist, which is confirmed in one of the DLCs. Before we continue, consider this your official warning for spoilers from Dragon Age Origins if you haven't completed the game. There will also be a few small spoilers from Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, and the Dragon Age comics, but I'll let you know when they show up. Now let's start our design deep dive of Alistair Theirin. Start off with the first thing most people notice about video game characters, visual design. Alistair's original design, much like many other characters, changed quite a bit from the concept art. At least, what's available to the public, which isn't much. In the original concept art shown, he looks much older, wearing armor that appears to be an early concept for the ones commonly worn by Grey Warden, or maybe even an early concept for the Templar armor. Previously, Alistair was supposed to be a grizzled Grey Warden veteran, here to lead the player through their journey as a new Warden, but a character like that was determined to be more likely to take the lead rather than be along for the ride, so he was changed to be a new recruit in order to give the player more agency to assume a leadership position. However, Alistair still retains its initial purpose to an extent. The switch to him also being a fairly new recruit also seemed to simplify his design, and I gotta say, he is pretty generic looking. Bro looks almost exactly like Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series, who I consider to be the standard for generic Western action man. David Gator, the writer behind Alistair and former lead writer for the Dragon Age series, even pulled inspiration for him from the character Malcolm Reynolds from the show Firefly, who's played by Nathan Fillion, and yeah, there's some visual resemblance there too. He even played Nathan Drake in an Uncharted fan film. I think Alistair's less than unique look is intentional. He's supposed to be approachable, relatable, someone that sets you at ease during your adventure, and someone you can rely on. Giving him a somewhat familiar look that players could tie to other characters with similar qualities helps to give him that vibe from the first glance. Alistair's armor isn't even unique when you first meet him in the game. He's just wearing normal split mail armor that you can pick up during multiple points along the adventure. Future games puts him in Grey Warden armor, but even then, it's the same warrior armor that all Grey Wardens wear. He isn't trying to stand out. In fact, he doesn't want to be noticed at all. He just wants functional armor and weapons that will help keep him alive. Alistair will continue this basic trend unless he becomes King of Ferelden. His design as king is a bit more unique, looking quite a bit more regal, but still matching Alistair's personality of wanting clothes with more function than style. His king's garb is built more to protect him from the cold Ferelden weather, as well as being armored to protect him from battles he shouldn't be in. It also shares some design elements with the split mail armor most commonly associated with him. While his visual design is more on the simpler side and somewhat common, it's not due to a lack of imagination, as it falls in line with his general identity and role in the story. With that said, let's take a deeper look at Alistair's personality.
Yes, that's right. Watch as I thrash our enemies with the mighty power of floral arrangements.
Voiced by Steve Valentine, who also voiced Terry Flynn in Uncharted 2. Man, this game got a lot of connections to the Uncharted series. Alistair is usually the first one to crack a joke in a bad situation. He's developed a sarcastic demeanor to help mask his insecure nature created by his terrible childhood.
I'm a bastard. My mother was a serving girl at Redcliffe Castle, and she died when I was born. Our Leman took me in and raised me before I was sent to the Chantry.
Training as a Templar seems to have given him an interest in the occult. Despite his cautious attitude towards magic, Alistair enjoys gifts of mystical runes and demon statues.
It used to get so quiet at the monastery that I would start screaming until one of the brothers came running. I would tell them that I was just checking. You never know, right?
Arl Eamon even bought Alistair a small golem statue once when he was a child.
Where do you think they get all this stuff? You think they, have any miniature golem dolls?
While Alistair is best known for being the main comic relief of the party, that's not all there is to him.
That's what I'm here for. To deliver unpleasant news and witty one-liners.
Through interacting with him at camp, you learn he's actually a very loyal person, capable of dedicating everything to a cause he believes in. The whole reason he sticks with your character, even if you have 100% disapproval, isn't because of his loyalty to you, but to the Grey Wardens and your common goal of stopping the Blight.
And because of that, I have to stand by and watch you disgrace everything I hold dear. I guess I'll have to be satisfied with you actually helping to stop the Blight, won't I? If that's still your intention. I can't do it on my own. Let's just go. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
For most of his life, he felt unwanted and lesser than everyone else. The constant verbal, emotional, and physical abuse he went through has made him quite insecure.
I locked myself in a cage once when I was a child. For an entire day. Ah, good times.
Due to him being Merrick's illegitimate son, there was a fear that he might try to start a rebellion against his older brother Caitlin to take the throne for himself. Isolde, Eamon's wife, even thought he was Eamon's child and had a similar fear when she gave birth to their son Connor. As a result, he was constantly told how he had no chance at any leadership position and how incapable he was at doing basically anything. They wanted him broken, and they partially succeeded.
In fact, you defer to a new recruit. Is this the policy of the Grey Wardens, or simply a personal one?
What do you want to hear? That I prefer to follow? I do. Just so you know, if the king ever asks me to put on a dress and dance to Remigold, I'm drawing the line. Darkspawn or no.
Despite his upbringing, Alistair has become a kind-hearted person who strives to do the right thing, although he realizes he doesn't always know what that is, or if he can even accomplish it. During your adventures together, you'll often find he advocates for the choices that lead more towards the morally good side, or at least just hurt the least amount of people, regardless if that same courtesy wasn't shown to him. For example, during the quest in Redcliffe where you have to choose how to deal with Arl Eamon's son that has been possessed by demons, it upsets him greatly if you allow Connor or Isolde to be killed.
You killed Connor. You killed him. A little boy. How could you do that? But if magic put that thing in him, how do you know magic couldn't have taken it out? There must have been some other way. You let Lady Isolde sacrifice herself. With blood magic. How could you do that? We could have gone to the Circle of Magi. We could have tried harder. We should have tried something that didn't involve blood magic. That's for sure. She was grasping at straws. Of course she would sacrifice herself. She felt guilty for what happened. But there must have been another way.
He tells you how much Isolde despised him enough to convince Eamon to send him off to the Chantry, the news of which enraged Alistair so much he smashed his mother's amulet against the wall. It was the only thing he had left of her. Yet still, he does not wish to see any of them dead or suffering.
Now that we're back at the camp, I want to talk about what happened. At Redcliffe. I just wanted to thank you. You went out of your way to save the Arl's family, and you did it. Even though it would have been easier not to. There's been so much death and destruction. It makes me feel good that at least we were able to save something. No matter how small. I owed the Arl that much.
Not to say he's incapable of malicious thoughts or acts, Alistair is far from perfect or innocent, and the Darkspawn Chronicles DLC, along with 3 of the Dragon Age comics, can give a better idea of what it looks like when Alistair gives in to negative emotions. In a way, Alistair is almost like your moral compass in the game, guiding you towards more just and heroic choices, which is a good way to make the players who like to farm approval make specific decisions in the story.
Hey, you see those thingies over on the side of that huge chasm? I bet they're used for something. Maybe I should touch them or stand on them?
Alistair, normal people tend to avoid strange-looking sections of floor thingies, as you say. They tend to be traps.
You don't really think they're traps, do you?
Even more so if they happen to be romancing him.
Oh. You see, I didn't know that.
Let's look at some other ways that Alistair assists you during the game. The first way is by being the party's main tank, unless you decide to do that yourself. Like many fantasy action men before him, Homeboy was built to be a sword and board warrior, although there are rumors he's twirled a pike from time to time. As this is the initial game that kicks off the Dragon Age series, most people are going to want to know more about the world in it. However, most people also don't want to read the codex you pick up with lore about said world. That's where the companions come in. Alistair gives you insight into the Grey Wardens and Templars, 2 very important factions in Thedas that have huge relevancy to the overall plot of the Dragon Age series.
Poke, poke, poke. Tell me everything about your life, Alistair. All right, if you insist. It's not like we have anything better to do, right?
An important takeaway from Alistair being a Templar is that he doesn't take lyrium, which is given to the Templars to enhance their powers and for the Chantry to control them through addiction as they control the lyrium trade. Despite this, Alistair retains all his Templar abilities and can even train you or others to use them if you're a warrior.
You need to have a disciplined mind in order to use the abilities we have. It was difficult, but rewarding.
It's not clear if he ever took lyrium at all. Could be that it just enhances the mage combating powers, or it's all just a lie about a chantry, and it doesn't do anything but slowly melt their minds. Only having been a warden for a few months before you, Alistair doesn't know a huge amount about the Order and their secrets.
Duncan recruited me about 6 months ago. There's not a lot I can tell you.
It's just enough to help you along the initial stages of corruption as you struggle with your taint. Because who better to teach you about your taint than your brand new brother-in-arms?
Some people never have much trouble, but that's rare. Others have trouble sleeping their entire life. They're just more sensitive, I suppose. Everyone ends up the same, though. Once you reach a certain age, the real nightmares come. That's how a Grey Warden knows his time has come.
Most importantly, Alistair also serves as a secondary plot point for the game. Because, yeah, the blight-consuming Ferelden is a big problem, but we also have the other small problem of the king being dead that is now snowballing into a civil war. The revelation that Alistair is possibly the new king gives a plausible solution to a definite problem.
Hello? Have you met me? I'm no leader of men. I don't want to be the person sitting on the throne and making decisions that affect the lives of others. It just isn't me.
But would Alistair even make a good king? He denies it constantly, admits to making multiple mistakes, and seems to have made it this far in life from luck alone. Just like his father, King Merrick. Alright, time for a quick lore rundown of Alistair's father, Merrick Theirin. Warning, this section will have spoilers from the novel Dragon Age: The Stolen Throne, also written by David Gator. During the occupation of Ferelden by the Orlesians, Merrick's mother, Moira Theirin, also known as the Rebel Queen, was assassinated in front of him. Merrick fled, eventually running into Loghain, who ends up saving him more than once throughout the novels. Eventually, they run into Flemeth, yes, that Flemeth, who offers to help Merrick regain his throne in return for an unknown request he was not allowed to speak of with anyone. Most interesting part of this interaction for me is the warning Flemeth gives to Merrick before he leaves. She tells Merrick that Loghain will continually betray him if kept close, and each time will be worse than the last. Holy hells, did she hit the nail on the head with that one. Read through the books if you want details, almost killing off the Theirin bloodline just to hide of his betrayal, but it is far from the only thing he has ever done. Merrick was betrothed to Rowan Guerin, Eamon's sister, who shows herself to be far more capable in almost every way to be a leader compared to Merrick. After regaining control of Ferelden and marrying Mark, she would eventually give birth to Kaelin before passing away. This sent Mark into a long depression where he refused to leave the palace, becoming increasingly more withdrawn. Loghain was eventually taken to the palace to try and bring him out of his funk. He succeeds, but also takes it upon himself to help Mark rule. In 925 Dragon, King Mark disappears at sea when Alistair was 15 years old. 5 years later is when the events of Dragon Age Origins take place. With that out of the way, time to take a look at Alistair's journey through the Dragon Age series so far. Since we've talked a bit about his childhood earlier on, we'll just do a quick recap. Alistair is Mark's bastard son. Arl Eamon is his uncle, kind of, because his sister Rowan was married to Mark. Eamon was tasked with raising him as some rando kid to avoid suspicion and ended up treating him terribly for multiple equally bad reasons. They made him sleep on hay in the stables, and when they went to their Denerim estate with multiple bedrooms, he was forced to sleep with the hounds. Then he was shipped off to the Chantry, where everyone still hated him for reasons new and old.
The initiates from poor families thought I put on airs, while the noble ones called me a bastard and ignored me.
He was then taken out of the Templar Order by Duncan through rite of conscription, conveniently right after he finished his training, but right before he had taken his vows.
The Grand Cleric didn't want to let me go. Duncan was forced to conscript me, actually, and was she ever furious when he did. I thought she was going to have us both arrested. I was lucky.
He then finally felt at home among the Grey Wardens, which allowed him to slowly start building up his confidence and sense of self.
I never really felt at home anywhere, though, until I joined the Grey Wardens. And Duncan felt my Templar abilities might be useful for when we encountered Darkspawn magic, so I kept it up.
Fast forward a few months, you've just completed your tragic backstory. You've met King Kaelin, who promises to lend you aid after the battle, and Duncan tells you to seek out a young Grey Warden named Alistair. When you first encounter Alistair in Ostagar, he's having a chat with one of the Circle mages, and it is not going well. Despite Alistair attempting to be cordial, the mage is annoyed by his mere presence. The mage doesn't seem to have a high opinion of the Wardens, given the impression he thinks the Circle has overextended on their behalf. Once Alistair informs the mage the revered mother sent him, it makes the situation far worse, as the mage sees this as an act of aggression from the Chantry, because Alistair is an ex-Templar. Gotta say, I find it really funny. He's basically on a generic take message from NPC 1 to random NPC 2 style quest when you first meet him. Relatability on point. After the convo is over, he walks up to you and says one of his many memorable lines.
You know, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together.
This is a good introduction to him as a character. You learn he's pretty respectful until pushed, and tends to be a bit sarcastic and makes jokes when a situation gets tense. You even see a bit of his insecure side when he's taken aback by you saying you look forward to traveling with him.
You do? Huh, that's a switch.
To add on to that thought, if you try to learn more about him, at first he's quite reluctant to say anything, even coming across as a bit annoyed that you'd even ask.
As I said, I was trained as a Templar before Duncan recruited me about 6 months ago.
He's a bit pessimistic about the notion that anyone would actually care to know him. Later, you see another side of Alistair, when a small bit of his leadership skills shine through in Ostagar as he's assisting you and the other new recruits through the Kokari wilds.
Did you hear? An entire patrol of seasoned men killed by Darkspawn.
Calm down, Sir Jory. We'll be fine if we're careful. There are Darkspawn about, but we're in no danger of walking into the bulk of the Horde.
How do you know? I'm not a coward.
A bit of fear isn't unnatural, you know. Few relish meeting Darkspawn up close. I know I don't. Whatever their cunning, I guarantee they won't take us by surprise. That's why I'm here. That doesn't mean I'm here to make this easy, however. So let's get a move on.
Or when he asserts himself during the initial attack on the tower, keeping a calm and level head during a time of crisis.
You're Grey Wardens, aren't you? The tower, it's been taken.
What are you talking about, man? Taken how?
The Darkspawn came up through the lower chambers. They're everywhere. Most of our men are dead.
Then we have to get to the beacon and light it ourselves.
Some very important qualities for a leader to have. After the battle, Alistair is alive, but devastated by the outcome.
All Grey Wardens in Ferelden are gone. Except for us. I've lost everyone. For the love of the Maker, don't back out on me now.
Torn up about the loss of his Grey Warden brothers and sisters, and half-brother Kaelin, yet the death that hurts him the most is Duncan's. He has such a strong reaction to it that he feels the need to apologize later, feeling he should have handled the situation better.
I shouldn't have lost it, not when so much is riding on us, not with the Blight and everything. I'm sorry.
As you continue to talk with Alistair at camp, you learn just how strong of a bond he had with Duncan, one which seems much closer than that of a Warden commander and his new recruit. Before the battle, Duncan even takes the time to have a talk with Alistair about the potential he might die soon, either during the ensuing fight or from the calling. The fate of all Grey Wardens after the Darkspawn corruption finally takes its toll on their bodies and minds.
Duncan warned me right from the beginning that this could happen. Any of us could die in battle. You know, Duncan, he started having the nightmares again. He told me that in private. He said it wouldn't be long before he'd go to Orzammar himself. I guess he got what he wanted. I just wish it had been something worthy of him.
Alistair always felt like he owed Duncan for taking him in. Now the only reason he lived was because Duncan sent him away from the main assault. Why would Duncan put so much more effort and time building a relationship with Alistair over the other Wardens? Upon entering Redcliffe with Alistair, he'll stop you and confess to being Marek's son, expressing his reluctance to take the throne.
I would have told you, but it never really meant anything to me. I was inconvenient, a possible threat to Kaelin's rule, and so they kept me secret. I'd never talked about it to anyone. Everyone who knew either resented me for it or they coddled me. Even Duncan kept me out of the fighting because of it.
Hoping Eamon will become the new king as he feels unqualified to rule Ferelden. It's clear he's still holding on to all the things said to him years ago.
I'm the son of a commoner and a Grey Warden to boot. It was made very clear to me early on that there was no room for me raising any rebellions or such nonsense. And that's fine by me. Now, if there's an heir to be found, it's Al Eamon himself.
There's one more family tie weighing on Alistair's mind, but this one he's a bit more receptive to. So, after spending some time with Alistair, he'll tell you about his half-sister Goldana, daughter of the serving girl that died giving birth to him.
I have a sister, a half-sister. I told you about my mother, right? She was a servant at Redcliffe Castle and she had a daughter. Only, I never knew about her. I don't think she knew about me either. They kept my birth a secret after all. But, after I became a Grey Warden, I did some checking and, well, I found out she's still alive. In Denerim.
As she's the only family he's got left not tied to the Theirin bloodline, he wants to visit her in Denerim to possibly form a connection, or at least warn her about the Blight.
If something happened to her and I never went to at least see her, I don't know if I could forgive myself. Her name is Goldana, and I think she remarried but still lives just outside the alienage. If we're in the area, then, well, it's worth a look.
The interaction is less than ideal.
My name's Alistair. Well, this may sound sort of strange, but are you Goldana? If so, I suppose I'm your brother.
You! I knew it! They told me you was dead. They told me the babe was dead along with Mother, but I knew they was lying.
They told you I was dead? Who? Who told you that?
Them's at the castle. I told them the babe was the king's and they said he was dead. Gave me a coin to shut my mouth and sent me on my way. I knew it.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. The babe didn't die. I'm him. I'm your brother.
For all the good it does me. You killed Mother, you did, and I've had to scrape by all this time. That coin didn't last long, and when I went back, they ran me off. A prince and a Grey Warden too. Well, who am I to think poorly of someone so high and mighty compared to me? I don't know you, boy. Your royal father forced himself on my mother and took her away from me. And what do I got to show for it? Nothing. They tricked me good. I should have told everyone. I got 5 mouths to feed. And unless you can help with that, I got less than no use for you.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. I wasn't expecting my sister to be so... I'm starting to wonder why I came.
I don't know why you came either, or what you expected to find. But it isn't here. Now get out of my house, the both of you.
Social disaster complete, you now have a chance to change Alistair's life forever by making him hardened. BioWare, why did you call it that? Anyway. If you tell Alistair that everyone is out for themselves and he needs to learn that, it triggers a bit of an epiphany. Back at camp, he'll want to talk about his grand revelation of, hey, maybe I shouldn't just do whatever people tell me to do.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. Funny, I'm sure. Just listen for a minute. Back when we left Goldana's, you told me I needed to look out for myself more than I do. I'm beginning to think you were right. I need to stop letting everyone else make my decisions for me. I need to take a stand and think about myself for a change, or I'm never going to be happy. What you said made sense. I should have done this a long time ago. I just wanted to thank you. Meeting you is the one bright spot out of everything that's happened.
There is a way to talk Alistair out of this once it's been triggered, but I feel that kind of robs him of further character development. Trying to shield someone from the harsh realities of the world while good-intentioned is doing them a disservice. Here's a bit of irony for you. Not only does Eamon and Isolde's son end up being a mage after they sent Alistair away to be a mage hunter, if you choose to kill Connor during the quest in Redcliffe, there will be an epilogue slide at the end of the game stating Isolde passed while giving birth to a baby girl that Eamon names after his sister Rowan. Just like what they said happened to Alistair's mother. But hold up, we gotta rewind this because that whole situation with Alistair's sister came from a lie. Spoiler warning for one of the Dragon Age novels, The Calling. So, during The Calling, King Mark goes on an adventure into the Deep Roads. There's a lot of people involved, but we're gonna focus on 3 of them. Alistair's father, King Marek, the Orlesian Grey Warden mage that also happens to be an elf, Fiona, and a young, newly recruited Grey Warden Duncan. As the events of the book unfold, Mark becomes good friends with Duncan and falls in love with Fiona. Fiona has been a Grey Warden for a long time, and the corruption in her body was also sped up by an amulet given to the Grey Wardens by the book's big bad to turn them into ghouls. Fiona removed the amulet when she found out, but assumed she would die soon anyway from its effects. During the epilogue of the book, Duncan goes to visit Mark about a year later and brings Fiona along, still alive and well. In fact, she seems to be doing better than she was before. Fiona asks Duncan to leave for a bit so she and Merrick can have a heartfelt reunion. After a little bit of catching up, she asks Duncan to return, and in his arms is little baby Alistair. Yeah. Now, it's super rare for Grey Wardens to have children, but when they do, the child has to be given away. Fiona doesn't want Alistair in line for the throne, but she does want Mark to know who he is. She also asks that Alistair never learns who his mother is, as she feels being elf-blooded or being the child of a mage and the warden would make his life harder. Also, the Ferelden king having a kid by an Orlesian woman might not go over well because of the whole hostile invasion thing. Just gonna point out here that Fiona is cured from the Blight. No one is entirely sure why, but the Wardens want to study her. She says she can't raise Alistair because she needs to go back to the Wardens. But now she's also immune to the taint and can't become a Warden again, which ends up with her being exiled from the Order. The only thing stopping her from being in Alistair's life is her own insecurities. Anyway, Mark agrees to Fiona's request, and Duncan offers to keep an eye on his kid so he can have updates on how he's doing. Which means, this whole time, Duncan knew who Alistair was and kept tabs on him. That's why he was able to snatch him from the Chantry just in time before he took the vows, and why he formed such a close bond with him. Alistair does talk about Duncan knowing of his bloodline, but as far as Alistair knows, he only learned this after they met for what he thought was the first time when he took him from the Chantry. Random thought, did Duncan recruit Alistair into the Wardens to see if he was also resistant to the Blight? Something to think about. Alright, back to origins. Now that Alistair is toughened up a bit, he's much more receptive to being king and wants Anora nowhere near the throne, which is the correct response, because Anora is awful.
They say that Anora is smart, determined. She's supposedly the one who's really ruled here, not Kaelin. She's her father's daughter. Me? I say that's where the problem lies. People like her and her father always think they're the only ones who can fix things. So everyone should just stay out of their way.
Let's move forward to the Landsmeet because we're sticking to the more significant parts related to Alistair and not the tiny bits scattered about. After gaining majority favor at the Landsmeet, you get to choose a champion to fight Loghain. You can do this yourself or send any of your other companions, except your dog, to face him. Personally, I think the most fitting thing to do here is send Alistair to face him, giving him some well-earned revenge and closure.
There is some of Marek in you after all.
More than you know, Loghain. More than you know. Alistair then kills him in Duncan's name instead of Marek's, and his blood splatters all over Anora. Barely cares because she's focused on getting a shiny hat and chair so she can keep playing pretend. There are a few different things that can occur here that can drastically change Alistair's future. One option is to put Alistair on the throne alone. Another is to have him marry Anora and have them rule together. You can also have Anora rule alone, but that's the worst ending. Why would you do that? She instantly tries to kill Alistair after Loghain's betrayals live on through his daughter. There's also a slightly secret option of letting Loghain live and forcing him to become a Grey Warden. But if you do that and Alistair is not king, you will leave the party for good out of anger and become exiled from Ferelden. If you play as a female human noble, you have the option to marry Alistair and rule with him as queen, rubbing salt in Anora's wounded ego. If you are a human noble male, you have the choice to marry Anora, which I don't know why you'd do that unless you just wanted to be king. However, if we're going by the BioWare canon, Alistair's king and rules alone. We got a few more choices that can end with Alistair getting Morgan preggo with a god baby, or he has another chance to die fighting the archdemon if taken with you into the final fight, if no one did the ritual with Morgan. The epilogue slides tell you the aftermath of all your choices in the game, including how Alistair fares as king. No matter what, he does tend to get a little pushback from people, but overall he tends to do about as good as Mark did, if not a little better, if you choose to harden him. You can also get a small cameo from King Alistair in the Awakening expansion pack.
I rather miss the whole Darkspawn killing thing.
King Alistair.
And that's pretty much the last you hear from him in this game, although his adventures aren't over yet. Let's move on to Alistair's appearances in Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, and the comic series that takes place between those two games. First, we're going to go over some quick Dragon Age 2 spoilers. In the later acts of Dragon Age 2, you can encounter Alistair a few different ways depending on your choices from Origins. If you made Alistair king, he'll ask to speak with Hawke about the tensions between the mages and Templars.
You asked to see me.
I did. Or I think I did, anyhow.
This is the champion of Kirkwall.
Right, I'm Alistair. King of Ferelden. And this is Tegan, my uncle. Sort of.
I'm actually Tegan. I'm only sort of his uncle.
He even recognizes Isabella and Anders if you bring them along.
Say, weren't you a Grey Warden once?
That's the rumor. Wait. Weren't you?
That's the rumor.
Huh. I guess we get around.
So, you're a king now. Moving up in the world.
Isabella, right? You look different.
Don't we all?
From what he says, it appears he's still doing fine as king and has embraced his new responsibilities, doing all he can to help the people of Ferelden. If Alistair is only a Grey Warden, you'll run into him during the Kunaria attack on Kirkwall.
Whew, on the list of things I thought might happen today, a Kunari attack would have been near the bottom.
Just near the bottom?
It's a big list. I like to be prepared.
He can't stay to help due to his mission taking priority and won't give you details as he remains loyal to the Wardens and their secrets. Before leaving, he'll hand you an item once held by the hero of Ferelden. It seems he's taken on a leadership role within the Wardens as well.
Yeah, maybe this might help. It belongs to an old friend, but I'm willing to bet he'd like you to have it.
The final and worst state you can find him is drunk inside the Hanged Man, screaming about being a prince after being exiled.
I am the Prince of Ferelden, I'm telling you!
He keeps saying that.
That's because it's true!
I think it is true, actually.
Eventually, Tegan will come and take him home, but it's not clear what happens to him after that.
Stupid Grey Wardens and their stupid rituals. Why does anyone take the joining anyway? What are the Wardens good for? Just a stupid club, that's what it is. Everyone hanging around, talking about their taint. Well, I don't need it. That's right. I said it.
But that ends the Dragon Age 2 spoilers, and we move into spoilers for the 3-part comic series featuring not only Alistair, but Isabella and Varric as well. Before I start showing pages from the comics, I'ma tell you that things look a little off. The art isn't terrible, just kinda tonally inaccurate in places, with some anatomy jank sprinkled in. For example, you'll often see characters talking with their mouth shut. Alistair also has the wrong eye color for some reason. Moving right along, the main plotline for these comics, The Silent Grove, Those Who Speak, and Until We Sleep, revolves around Alistair's search for his father, King Marek, who may still be alive. Origins takes place in 930 Dragon, where Alistair is about 20 years old. The comics take place after the events of Dragon Age 2, so sometime after 937, so Alistair is between late 20s to early 30s during the comics. Alistair got a tip from a guy named Claudio Valesti, Prince of Antiva and third Talon of the Antivan Crows. As he doesn't fully trust this guy, for good reason, he brings along 2 people he can trust slightly more to make sure he doesn't die instantly. He also mentions that he missed walking into death with the wrong people at his side. Not much chance for adventures when you're king. It does seem that Alistair's become much more stoic over time. He's accepted his role as king even though he still feels unfit for the job. He learns Mark might be inside an Antivan prison, so off the trio go to try and infiltrate it and execute a slapdash rescue mission. See, this is what I mean by the tonal inaccuracies. She looks more enraged than annoyed like her dialogue suggests, then instantly goes back to the same neutral expression. It's so weird. Continuing on, things of course don't go as planned and they have to fight their way through the problem. Alistair does find Mark's cell, but he isn't there, just a frail old man that shared the space with him for a time. The old man tells him that Merrick was taken by a witch of the wilds, because of course he was. So off to the swamp we go. They find the witch Yavanna, who confirms she is one of Flemeth's many daughters, and tells Alistair she smells the old blood in him. Creepy. She goes on about Merrick's deal with Flemeth, where he was supposed to come to her after his children were grown to fulfill the deal he made. Alistair tries to attack her, being a bit more reckless than he used to be, fails and is dragged away by Izzy and Varric. Side note, if the rogues are the reasonable people in your party, that's a bad sign. Alistair gets sad. Izzy makes a weird face after getting hit with an arrow, signaling an ambush by Claudio, who of course was just using them to make a way through the swamp. Alistair gives himself up so the 2 rogues can go free. Despite Alistair becoming a bit more harsh and colder, his selfless nature still comes through. He even tells them to go back and find Tegan in order to get paid. And, of course, tell them he's been kidnapped. Varric and Isabella go and ask Yavanna for help. She heals them up, and Alistair is rescued. They use Speak the Dead to get the name of Aurelian Titus, a Tevinter Magister, from Claudio's corpse, and head back to Yavanna's place. Alistair is part of the bloodline of King Calenhad, the first king of Ferelden. Calenhad was a crazy man who drank the blood of a dragon to gain its power, which is somewhat similar to what the Grey Wardens do with the Archdemons. This means Alistair is not only half-elf, but also part dragonborn. If this ain't some main character nonsense, I don't know what is. Let's not even get into how the Darkspawn blood is also mixed around in there. With that said, this is the reason Yavanna wanted Merrick, and tries to convince Alistair to use his dragon blood to awaken more dragons, fulfilling Merrick's promise to Flemeth. He responds by shanking her in the gut. Yeah, bro is far more steel to the world than he used to be and despises these wild witches. Absolutely done with their BS and riddles. Good for him. He then stares down a dragon, like a Chad, and as the dragon respects his swagger, it allows him to leave unharmed. Alistair tells Varric he's done being a pawn. It shows. Jumping ahead some more, they roll up to a Tevinter party looking for Titus. He shows up and Alistair hits him with his Templar laser fist, and all hell breaks loose. People die, they take a captive, and get the location Titus ran to. Unfortunately, that's on the island of Saharon that is occupied by the Qunari. They instantly get captured. Locked up again, Izzy is being tortured due to prior history with the Qunari, see Dragon Age 2, while Alistair and Varric get taken to meet the heir Shock, formerly known as Sten, from Dragon Age Origins. Sten looks way cooler now, and apparently learned the fist laser technique that Alistair has. Must have gave him some Templar training back when they traveled in Ferelden. They get shoved back into a jail cell, but luckily, Izzy has broken herself out of jail and is here to break them out. Alistair 1v1s Sten, while Isabella has her own 1v1 with the Tamasaran. They win their respective fights and agree to join forces with the Qunari to take down Titus. They arrive at the island stronghold, sending Varric in to find the source of Titus' power, while they battle him on the front lines. Varric finds the weird orb of nefarious usage, with Merrick hooked up to it like a battery. Varric then makes the smart choice of destroying the thing he doesn't understand, which plunges everyone into the Fade to experience their own dream or nightmare. Back when you enter the Fade in Dragon Age Origins during the Mage Tower quest, Alistair's dream is about living a simple life with his assumed sister, Goldana. Now his dream has changed to living a life with his father Merrick and brother Kaelin, excited the throne will go to his older brother and not him. The person that snaps him out of the dream this time is Merrick, who is dreaming along with him and has realized that Alistair before him is not an illusion, but his actual son. Together, they go take Titus down for good. Merrick regains control of the dream powered by his blood and lops off Titus' head. Alistair and Merrick have a heart-to-heart where Alistair convinces him to leave the Fade and join him in the real world, but it's too late. Merrick was correct. The Magrellan is the only thing keeping him alive. Alistair realizes what must be done and destroys the device holding his father captive. The last time we see Alistair in the comic, he's sitting on a throne, annoyed, watching two men argue about something probably not that important, that he's most likely already made a decision on. Final round of spoilers, y'all. Now we're moving into Dragon Age Inquisition to check out the last few times we hear about Alistair so far. These events take place in 941 Dragon. This will be short because he only really shows up in two different scenarios. If Alistair is king, you'll run into him should you seek help from the mages to close the breach. This questline actually involves Fiona, Alistair's real mother. She's gone from Grand Enchanter to leader of the Mage Rebellion, and she's still making horrible choices. As she had no idea what she was doing, she hands the mages over to the Tevinter Imperium in desperation and almost got them conscripted into the army as a result. Seems despite her capabilities as a mage and a warden and just a survivor in general, she doesn't make that good of a leader. After you solve the problem, Alistair will show up and banish the rebel mages from Ferelden, as they're now too much of a liability to keep around.
Your Majesty, we never intended...
I know what you intended. I wanted to help you. But you've made it impossible. You and your followers are no longer welcome in Ferelden.
While he's empathetic to the mages, he knows the safety of Ferelden comes first. Even with all her faults, it still feels bad to see Fiona reunite with Alistair, only for him to send her further away, as the king she didn't want him to be. Her dying at the hands of the Inquisitor and the other option seems almost a kinder fate. If Alistair remains a Grey Warden, he gets a much bigger role in the story of Inquisition, but that might not be a good thing. Grey Warden Alistair takes his vows as seriously as ever, taking it upon himself to investigate Corypheus. Fortunately, he gets branded a traitor when disobeying Warden Commander Clairol after she proposes a blood magic ritual using the Warden's lives to summon demons in a last-ditch attempt to cleanse the deep roads of all Darkspawn after they've all started hearing the calling. Alistair suspects Corypheus is the cause behind the strange event and goes into hiding until approached by Hawke and the Inquisitor for help. Together, they head to the western approach to investigate a Grey Warden congregation and find Clairol with a Venatori Magister, the ritual already underway. A huge fight breaks out in the fortress with a dragon and everything, leading the Inquisitor and crew falling after the floor beneath them crumbles. The Inquisitor uses the mark on their hand to open a rift to the Fade in order to save their lives. Once you enter the Fade, Alistair makes an interesting comment that implies the events from the comics are canon regardless if he's king.
I've seen my father in the Fade. I've seen a demon pretending to be my sister in the Fade. But I've never seen this.
After traveling through the Fade, searching for a way back, they run into a massive demon preventing them from escape. At this point, you have a choice. Sacrifice Alistair or sacrifice Hawke. For a lot of people, this was the hardest decision to make in the entire game. If Alistair survives, he will again be put in a leadership position as he takes command of the remaining Grey Wardens. If you check in with Alistair at Skyhold before investigating the Wardens and had him do the dark ritual with Morrigan, you'll find him talking to her about their son Kieran.
That's him. Oh, wow. I thought he'd look, I don't know, more demonic. Tentacles and fiery breath.
He is a normal boy, Alistair.
Uh-huh. And what does he know of how he was made?
He knows his father was a good man.
I thought you deserved that much.
He's changed you.
Don't be absurd.
They've both grown since they were last seen together in Origins. And this is the last we hear of Alistair, at least for now. We do have one more thing to touch on that I left for the end because it's more of an alternate universe or what-if scenario and not an official world state. Back at the beginning, I said there was a DLC to confirm Alistair would have been the main protagonist if not for your avatar. The Darkspawn Chronicles DLC lets you play as the Darkspawn during the siege on Denerim. The final boss of this DLC is Alistair, because in this timeline, the other warden never made it past the joining. Based on the enemies you fight during this battle, you can determine what choices Alistair made for the 3 out of 4 recruitment quests, and all of them can only be obtained during what most people consider the worst case scenarios. You see golems because he didn't destroy the Anvil of the Void. He has werewolves because he failed to save the Dalish from the curse. You can see Arl Hal, who's more of a betrayer than Loghain, leading part of the army. While Wynn and a few other mages are alive, it seems like Alistair mainly has the support of the Templars. So it could be only the mages on the lower level with Wynn were saved and the rest trapped on the other side of the force field didn't survive. Either because the rite of annulment went through or because of the demons and blood mages on the other side. The rest of the companions are there, but most of them are off doing their own thing when the Darkspawn horde hit Denerim, like Theirin hiding from the Antivan crows and the alienage, or Oghren hanging around the tavern with other angry drunks. The only companions willing to join Alistair to fight the Blight are Morrigan, because Lemeth tells her to, Liliana because of her vision, and Dog, who Alistair names Darkspawn. Side note, this is also the universe where Alistair romances Liliana and marries Anora, truly the worst of timelines. So why does Alistair's attempt at saving Ferelden go so badly without the Warden? We got a couple of possibilities here. One theory is due to what we know of Alistair's history. Morrigan most likely became the true leader of the party, telling Alistair what to do because the Warden wasn't there to take charge and tell her all her ideas were horrible. Another theory is all the hardships are too much for Alistair to handle without a friend by his side, in the form of the Warden. Without them, Alistair never recovers from what happens at Ostagar and just continues a downward spiral, making him harsh and brutal, like the world around him. This latter theory seems more likely after seeing Alistair in the comics, a world where the Warden died killing the Archdemon. At the end of the DLC, Alistair is defeated by a Herlock, sealing his fate and that of Ferelden's. Despite Alistair's importance to the story of Dragon Age Origins, his relevancy to the series as a whole, especially the games, has diminished over time. A large amount of the player base may even just think he's a simple NPC considering Dragon Age Inquisition, the 3rd game in the series, almost doubled the sales of Dragon Age Origins. A lot of people see Alistair as a simple, sarcastic party member that can be a bit whiny at times. Which is true, but there's so much more to him than that. When you look deeper into his backstory, there's more rhyme and reason to his choices and personality than you see from the surface. Dragon Age Origins wouldn't have been the same without Alistair. He makes this dark fantasy game a little bit brighter, which may or may not be a good thing depending on the person. My takeaway from this design deep dive is even though everyone is the main character of their own story, that doesn't make you just an NPC. Sometimes you're the companion that changed the course of their life.
I thought maybe I could say something. Tell you what a rare and wonderful thing you are to find amidst all this darkness.
Thanks for your time, and have a beautiful day.